The first thing I thought I'd cover, because the questions are always inevitable, people usually can't place my accent, so I'm just going to tell you where I'm from. I was born in Peru in South America. My parents are British. My father was born in Peru, my mother's British. His father was born in England, and my grandmother's British. No, my grandmother. My grandfather was born in England, my grandmother was born in Peru, my great-grandfather was born in Scotland, great-grandmother was born in Peru. So it goes back, I don't know how many generations, but they kept sending for spouses, you know, from Europe. We probably would have stayed there, except the political situation got very unstable and violent, and we moved to New Orleans in 1973. I was 10. And we had a connection to New Orleans because my grandmother's brother had served as a diplomat for Peru in New Orleans, and my father's youngest brother, probably because of that, was attending, you know, because he had a relative here in New Orleans, was attending UNM for a degree in physics, I think. Anyway, so we kind of left Peru in a hurry, and we came here, and my mother's not real fond of America, but she loved New Orleans and wouldn't live anywhere but the French Quarter. So I go from a little town in Peru to the French Quarter. And the idea was that I would always be educated in England. And so I was sent to boarding school for a couple of years. And I was supposed to, you know, finish up there and probably go to college over there. But my parents split up, and my dad went back to South America. And the finances weren't there to keep sending me, so I ended up in New Orleans public schools, and I graduated from public high school in New Orleans, and went to college at Lewis and Clark, which is in Portland, Oregon. It's a small, lovely liberal arts college, and I majored in biology. I had taken, as a senior in high school, if you met certain requirements, you were allowed to take classes at UNM. And I actually took an art class at UNM because I thought I might do art. And I was so intimidated by the instructor that I didn't take another art class my entire time at college. In college, my senior year, I took ecology, and that was the class that really got my attention out of all the biology classes. And the best thing about it was that instead of lab, you had field trips. And so you went camping. And, you know, what could be better? Instead of being stuck in the lab, part of your class is to go camping in, you know, the Cascades or the desert on the other side of the Cascades or at the coast. But anyway, I came back to New Orleans after college, and my first job was at LSU as a researcher. Stephanie here was somebody I did fieldwork with. After working at LSU, and I tried to get jobs with various agencies, and I didn't realize until like 10 years later there was no way you were ever going to get hired by Wildlife and Fisheries as a female in 1988. Not going to happen. I think that now they have female field people, but at that time. But anyway, I applied anyway. And there was a new agency, a fairly new agency, which was DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality. And the Southeast region was always pressed for people because we have so much industry. So we had one of the largest offices in the state, covered a 10-parish area. And the guy who hired me was pretty young, probably wasn't really so much the good old boy network. And so we got a vehicle. We drove a lot because we had to cover these 10 parishes. We worked watersheds, so I got to know, you know, the drainage patterns of the state. We had access to a plane if we needed to fly out, usually to a small, anything 3 miles inshore we covered, so small oil wells, that kind of thing. And we had access to boats. So that was when I really started to get to know, you know, sort of the landscape of Southeast Louisiana, because it's, unless you hunt or fish and you've got a, you know, a camp here, or you know somebody with a camp, it's hard to access, you know, living in the city. Anyway, I left DEQ, I was frustrated working there, and I eventually went back to school school at UNO for fine arts, and I graduated in 1997. My studio major was actually sculpture. And then since then, I got married, I have 2 children, I have part-time jobs, I do art, I still do some biology work. That's basically where I'm at right now. Okay, let's start with this side. This is my canoe. I was 35, I think, when I got married. My husband was older than me, so we didn't really need a lot of house gifts. We asked people to donate money to buy a canoe. And I wanted one that was real lightweight so that I could carry it, load it myself, and unload it if I needed to. This is a Kevlar canoe. It's 35 pounds. And it draws about 3 inches of water, so you can get into it. It's really great for the water around here. You wouldn't want to use it whitewater rafting because you'll punch a hole in it. But you know, around here with slow-moving water, shallow water, it's great. And it's actually in a little. There is actually water there. We went up a little. This is right off by Japan. You know, it's summertime. We went up a little waterway, and you know, getting out and looking around. So I guess probably starting in about 1998, I started doing a lot of canoeing. Mostly around the Lake Punch, within an hour or 2 drive. I don't think I ever really drove more than a couple of hours to go canoeing, so pretty much around here. And you know, started noticing things that I would want to use in my art. This is one of the first paintings I did from, you know, things I had seen while I was out on the bayou. This is on Kane Bayou, which is on the North Shore. It's a very accessible bayou. You can get off it right off Highway 190 near Lacombe. And this was after there had been real high water, and then it had dropped down and just thrown up all these. I call it Ava House on Kane Bayou. It's just, you know, all the vines are tangled up with all the debris that got thrown up on the banks. And I always figured, like, if you were able to read that well enough, you'd know just how high the water was and how fast and all that kind of thing. This is Mississippi Bayou. You access it off the I-10, a little bit past La Place, on the north side of the I-10. There's a large area there that one way or another is either managed by wildlife and fisheries, or, you know, some other state or federal agency. So I don't know how many acres it is, but it's large, so it has a very wild feel to it because there isn't very much encroachment. And this is pretty far down in Mississippi Bayou, and I remember here and on Pearl River, you know, it was the first time I had seen wild rice, which this is wild rice. And when people say wild rice, I always associate that with places like Minnesota, or, you know, because you buy those bags of rice in the store and it's collected by Native Americans in Minnesota or somewhere. And I didn't even know we had wild rice. And it's, you know, lining the bayou here underneath the cypresses. And this is it in bloom, so it's probably right around now. Going to seed in September. And yeah, it can be really lovely because the red-winged blackbirds love the wild rice, and they'll just have flocks and flocks of them, you know, landing on the wild rice and all talking and chattering. This was when I first started to really get interested in native plants, because I just found it odd that I didn't know that there was wild rice in Louisiana, that I didn't know there was wild rice right here off of the Pearl River. You know, it's just sort of part of our natural heritage, and I'm totally oblivious, and as far as I can tell, so was everybody else, you know, except for maybe field biologists who go out there. So, next slide. I did a small painting. This is a very tiny painting like this, of wild rice, and I just like the real, you know, it has a real sort of celebratory feel, and that the leaves are like big long ribbons, and they're just really fly out. This is on Pearl River. Wild rice needs fresh water, so if you start having saltwater intrusion or brackish water coming in, you're going to lose the rice. It also has probably pretty heavy nutrient requirements, so you have to be on a river that's carrying probably a fair sediment load. This is